Was there anything that we heard today that we hadn't heard before? Is it packaging rather than new policy?
It's about positioning, I think, and that's kind of what I'm saying, I suppose, which is that, I mean, you're right. It's an incredibly slick event, very, very much a practice for a manifesto launch, or the future of the election campaign launch for the Labour Party. Stuff full of activists, lots of placards, lots of bright colours. I mean, one of the most striking things for me was that Keir Starmer spoke. They removed the lectern that others had been standing in front of. He removed that, and I was having a cheeky look at the teleprompter. The thing that people read speeches from. It wasn't a fully written out speech. It was bullet points. It was very, very pared back. So a lot of what he was saying off the cuff. Now, those are anecdotes he's used a number of times before, but it shows you now there is a confidence to the way that he is delivering himself, and that's what today's about, right?
What do you make, Aisha, of the six pledge card? It's sort of getting closer to being a succinct message, but it still. The tail end of it still has a slight whiff of being written by committee. And, could we just add that on there?
Well, it will have been written by committee, because everything in the Labour Party is a sort of compositing, motion. You can't even send a sort of goodbye card without a sort of, a kind of union meeting and an affiliated society meeting. So of course it will be sort of done by committee. I mean, I think they're quite good. I know that there's a sort of, is this, it's also trying to clearly evoke the Blair pledge card that everybody harks back to. I mean, I don't really know how much pledge cards actually move the needle in terms of actual electoral success. But it's a very useful thing, particularly as we're talking about the line to take for things like candidates and people who are out and about on the media. They've got these six things they can go to. They've got a bit more granularity than the missions, which are very broad. So there's kind of specific things on, antisocial behaviour, for example, which they will have focus grouped and they will have done lots of stress testing of that. So look, I think it's just a bit more flesh on the bone. Look, we're not going to get vast amounts of detail ahead of the short campaign. I think we all accept that. We're in a slight holding pattern at the moment. But I think this pledge card, and actually the launch was quite slick. They had some quite interesting voices like Neil Basu on kind of terrorism and gangs and all that sort of thing. So I think this is a bit more flesh on the bone, but I think some of this will cut through to the public, but some of this is also a kind of media management tool for candidates and councillors and spokespeople.
In fact, it reminded me because, I think it was in 2017, so it was a while ago now. I interviewed Margaret McDonough, who'd be Labour General Secretary. She helped run the campaign in the 97. And she described bringing back the idea of the pledge card, having worked on, I think, Clinton's campaign in the US. And they told the politicians, so it was really for candidates and activists knocking on doors, but actually it was to keep politicians on message as well. They actually just stick to talking about those things. Don't wander off and start talking about all those other things. So we'll see.
Yeah, don't freestyle.
Don't start freestyling. Don't start freestyling. That seems to be the message. Thanks so much, Cara. This is the midday update. And our top story this lunchtime. Keir Starmer, like Tony Blair, now has a pledge card. He's been unveiling it in an event in Essex this morning, promising to deliver economic stability, cut NHS waiting lists, launch a border security command and recruit more teachers. Appearing alongside the shadow cabinet, he was questioned on why he's changed so many of his policies since he first ran for the Labour leadership back in 2020.
What I said to every member of the Labour Party when I was seeking election to lead the Labour Party was that I will change the Labour Party so that we can win an election. I ended every hustings with the same argument, which is if we don't win an election, none of this, that any of us have said, is going to make any difference at all to anybody's life.
Well, at that event in Essex was Times latest political editor Kate McCann. Kate, just picking up on that point there, Keir Starmer now setting out the things he would do as he was Prime Minister. This is quite a long way in some cases from what he originally said when he ran for the Labour leadership.
Yeah, it is a long way from that, Matt. And I think, look, that question will be on the minds of some, particularly, I think, Labour supporters who backed Keir Starmer originally, given the sort of way that he promised himself as the leader of the party. But I actually think today was about much more than that. And one of the most significant things that I think we heard from the Labour leader was right at the very, very end of what was quite a long session, actually, was where Keir Starmer said, you don't have to be tribal Labour to want your country to improve. This is a project that I think whether you voted Labour in the past, you never voted Labour, or you could be part of this project in the future, you genuinely want to change the country and move forward. I think that pitch is interesting because it's not pitching directly at people who've always voted Labour. They believe in this party. They think it's the best thing since sliced bread. It's pitching at people who just want to see a change. And I think that's part of the reason why there's been a bit of an accusation here at this event that those pledges are not very specific. They don't have any timescales on them. I mean, Keir Starmer talked at length about he'd been asked, by a lady whose eyelid was really sort of damaged. She needs surgery. She wants something to happen urgently. He gave a pledge of more appointments, but with no timescale on it. So you can see there's a mismatch there. I think the reason for that is there is a caution here from this Labour Party. They don't want to tie themselves up too tightly. They want to appeal to as many people as possible because they still think they need to do quite a lot to win.
It seemed quite slick, the event, from what I could see on the TV pictures, in terms of the cabinet minister and a real life person for each of the pledges. I mean, it's all very sort of slick and glossy. And now there's a pledge card with this photo on. Was there anything that we heard today that we hadn't heard before? Is it packaging rather than new policy?
It's about positioning, I think, and that's kind of what I'm saying, I suppose, which is that, I mean, you're right, it's an incredibly slick event, very, very much a practice for a manifesto launch or, the future of the election campaign launch for the Labour Party. Stuff full of activists, lots of placards, lots of bright colours. I mean, one of the most striking things for me was that Keir Starmer spoke. They removed the lectern that others had been standing in front of. He removed that, and I was having a cheeky look at the teleprompter, the thing that people read speeches from. It wasn't a fully written out speech. It was bullet points. It was very, very pared back. So a lot of what he was saying off the cuff. Now, those are anecdotes he's used a number of times before, but it shows you now there is a confidence to the way that he is delivering himself. And that's what today's about, right? Keir Starmer is front and centre on this pledge card. He's delivering himself to voters. And it's about sort of starting to say, I'm the man for the job. I've got my sleeves rolled up, etc., etc. And you're right. We were listening for the music. We've got a new bit of music that are going to be associated with this Labour Party going forward. The lyrics to which were step by step, bit by bit, which was playing out at the end there. So yeah, I think that does tell you that they are shaping up. And there is a lot that's gone into this event here today, and it will tell us how Labour's campaign will be run, I think.
I am genuinely fascinated by because normally, particularly with leaders of the opposition, they spend all their time trying to look like a prime minister. Obviously if it's men, suits, ties. I remember Ed Miliband once delivering a speech. He was so obsessed with looking prime ministerial from a lectern, delivering a speech from a back garden in Cardiff. He was sort of washing, flapping in the background, but still from a lectern. Interesting that Keir Starmer is sort of moving away from that, delivering this no tie, sleeves rolled up. And if people think, oh, that's nothing, that's all, you're focusing on PR, you should be focused on. They will have thought about that sort of thing so much inside the Labour Party.
Oh, they've thought at length about this. They've thought a huge amount about the picture that they chose of Keir Starmer to go on that pledge card. It's black and white. It's very serious. It's sleeves rolled up. It's no suit jacket. There is a reason for all of this. And there is actually an acceptance that up until now, people have questioned whether Starmer is capable, whether he is a good enough leader. And actually, some people suggest that, maybe he's just a little bit boring. I think a lot of today is about the run-up to showing, look, I can wander across a stage. I don't need a speech written out for me. I can talk off the cuff. He took 15 questions from the press today. That is quite a lot. Fine, they were pre-planned. There was a list of questions. But he did take questions which he would have expected to be hostile. He wouldn't have known what those questions were going to be. This is a practice run, a run out for that general election campaign. And it's interesting, isn't it, that a couple of journalists did ask about those comparisons to Blair, because Tony Blair had a very similar photo attached to a sort of a campaign that he ran up to the 97 election. And actually, Starmer's answer to that is, well, he won elections. And that's what we're trying to do. So, the challenges are different, but perhaps some of the method is the same. And that might be what we start to see more from this Labour government in waiting.
Thanks for that, Kate. Kate McCann there, Times Radio's political editor, about to jump on the bus back from Essex to come back to Times Radio Tower. So thanks for that, Kate.